The maintenance corridor on level 47 of Station Nexus 7 smelled like burnt wire and recycled air. Daewon knelt beside an open panel, his hands moving carefully through the tangle of cables inside. He had been fixing the same circulation system for 3 hours now. His back ached, but his face showed nothing. He never complained. He never really spoke unless someone asked him a question. Around him, the massive space station hummed with life. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds walked through its corridors every day. They came to trade, to negotiate, to study, or just to pass through on their way to somewhere else. Station Nexus 7 sat on the edge of known space, where 3 major trade routes crossed. It was important. It was busy. And Daewon had worked here for 3 years, almost invisible to everyone around him. He finished connecting the wires and closed the panel. The air vents above him started working again, pushing fresh air through the corridor. He picked up his toolkit and stood, wiping sweat from his forehead. He was shorter than most species on the station. His maintenance uniform hung loose on his thin frame. His black hair was starting to gray at the temples, though he was only in his 50s. To anyone watching, he looked tired. Old before his time, unremarkable. Still fixing things human. A deep voice rumbled behind him. Daewon turned slowly. Commander Velthor stood in the corridor, his massive reptilian form blocking most of the light. The Drachnith commander was over 7 feet tall, covered in dark green scales that looked like armor. His yellow eyes stared down at Daewon with barely hidden contempt. Behind him stood 2 of his officers, Lieutenant Kryn and Sergeant Vexra, both nearly as large as their commander. "Yes, Commander," Daewon said quietly. The circulation system needed repairs. Velthor snorted, a sound like steam escaping from a pipe. 3 years you have been here. 3 years of fixing pipes and cleaning filters. Is this what humans aspire to? My people are warriors. We conquer, we lead. And you crawl through maintenance shafts like a scavenger. Daewon said nothing. He had heard this speech before, or versions of it. He simply nodded and started to walk past the commander. "I am speaking to you, human," Velthor growled, stepping into his path. "The least you could do is show some pride in your species. Or do humans have no pride at all?" "I am just here to work, Commander," Daewon said, his voice still quiet. "Is there something you need repaired?" Kryn laughed, a harsh barking sound. "He does not even defend his people. Pathetic." Velthor stared at Daewon for a long moment, then stepped aside with disgust. "Go do your simple work. Stay out of the way of real beings." Daewon walked past them without looking back. He could hear them laughing as he turned the corner. He had learned long ago that some people needed to feel superior to others. It did not bother him anymore. Or if it did, he never let it show on his face. He made his way to the station's central hub where the human section was located. It was small compared to other species' quarters. Humans were still relatively new to this part of space, still proving themselves to older civilizations. There were only about 50 humans on the station at any given time. In the human commons area, he found Ji-Woo sitting at a table, reviewing reports on her datapad. She was young, maybe 30, with determined eyes and the formal clothing of a diplomatic officer. She looked up as Daewon entered. "Bad day?" she asked, noticing something in his expression. "Just another day," he replied, pouring himself a cup of coffee from the dispenser. Real coffee was expensive this far from Earth, but the humans on the station pooled their credits to keep it stocked. "Velthor again?" Daewon nodded. Ji-Woo sighed. "I have been trying to arrange a meeting with the Drachnith ambassador for weeks. They keep canceling. They do not take us seriously. They see us as weak because we are not as physically strong as they are." "Maybe we are weak," Daewon said, sitting down across from her. "You do not believe that." He shrugged. "Strength means different things to different species." Before Ji-Woo could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red warning lights flashed in the corridors. An automated voice announced, "Alert, hostile vessels approaching. All security personnel report to your stations. All civilians remain in your current sectors." Daewon and Ji-Woo looked at each other. The station's defensive shields hummed to life, a sound that vibrated through the walls. They could hear running footsteps in the corridors outside as security forces mobilized. They moved to the commons area window, which looked out into space. In the distance, they could see them, ships. Dozens of them, dark and angular, moving toward the station in attack formation. Even from this distance, they looked dangerous. "Pirates," Ji-Woo whispered. The Vortan Collective. They have been raiding in this sector for months, but never anything this big. The station's communication system crackled to life. Commander Velthor's voice boomed through every speaker. This is Commander Velthor. We are under attack by Vortan pirates. All security forces are mobilizing. All civilians are to shelter in place. We are warriors of the Drachnith Empire. We will not fall to these scavengers. Through the window they watched as the first wave of pirate ships opened fire on the station's shields. Blue energy rippled across invisible barriers as the weapons hit. The station shuddered slightly. More alarms, more announcements. The station was preparing for battle. Daewon stood at the window, watching the attacking ships. His expression had not changed. He looked calm. Too calm, perhaps, for someone watching a pirate fleet attack their home. Should we go to the shelter? Jiwoo asked, her voice tight with worry. In a moment, Daewon said quietly, his eyes tracking the movement of the pirate ships with unusual focus. An hour later, the first attack was repelled. The pirates retreated, but everyone knew they would be back. In the command center, Velthor called an emergency meeting of all department heads. Even the human representatives were required to attend. Daewon stood in the back of the room with the other low-ranking staff, nearly forgotten. Velthor stood at the front, his scales still smoking slightly from a close hit he had taken near one of the weapons batteries. They will return, the commander announced, probably with more ships. We damaged several of their vessels, but they tested our defenses. Next time they will know our weaknesses. What do they want? Someone asked. The station's weapons cache, our research data, everything of value. Velthor's eyes swept across the room, landing briefly on the humans in the back. This is a battle for warriors. Those of you who cannot fight should stay hidden. Perhaps in the maintenance shafts. His gaze fixed on Daewon for a moment, and several officers laughed. Daewon said nothing. He simply nodded, and when the meeting ended, he walked quietly back to his quarters. That night, Hana arrived at the station. Her cargo ship had been scheduled to dock for resupply, but now she was trapped by the pirate blockade forming around the station. She was a compact woman with sharp eyes and the confident walk of someone who had been flying ships since she was a teenager. She was moving through a restricted corridor, taking a shortcut to the human quarters when she saw him, Daewon, standing in front of a sealed door that led to the station's security sector. His hand was pressed against the access panel, which glowed with code sequences that should not have been accessible to a maintenance worker. Daewon, she called out. He turned quickly, his hand dropping from the panel. For just a moment, less than a second, his expression was different. His eyes were sharp, alert, dangerous. Then the familiar tired look returned. Hana, he said quietly, you should not be in this sector. Neither should you, she replied, walking closer. What were you doing? Just checking something. One of the security doors has been malfunctioning. It was a reasonable explanation. He was maintenance, after all. But something about the way he said it felt wrong to Hana, and his eyes, just for that brief moment, had looked like the eyes of someone else entirely. Are you okay? She asked. Just tired, Daewon said. It has been a long day. He walked past her, disappearing down the corridor. Hana stood there for a moment, looking at the security door. The access panel was dark now, showing no signs that anyone had been using it. But she had seen what she had seen. Something was not right about the quiet maintenance worker. Something she could not quite name, but that made the hair on the back of her neck stand up. In his small quarters, Daewon sat on his bed in the darkness. His hands were shaking slightly, though not from fear. From something else. From something old and buried deep, trying to wake up. Outside, in the black of space, the pirate fleet was regrouping, preparing for their next attack. And in the quiet darkness of his room, Daewon closed his eyes and began to remember things he had tried very hard to forget. The second attack came 30 hours later. This time, the pirates did not test the defenses. They came with everything they had. Daewon was in the maintenance bay when the alarm started. Around him, other workers immediately stopped what they were doing and ran toward the shelter areas. He stood still for a moment, listening to the sound of weapons fire hitting the station's shields. The impacts were heavier this time, more focused. He walked calmly to a storage locker and pulled out his emergency kit. Then he made his way toward level 32, moving against the flow of panicking civilians. In the command center, chaos ruled. Commander Velthor stood at the main display, watching as pirate ships hammered their shields from 3 different angles. The shield strength indicator dropped from 90% to 75% in just minutes. "Return fire," Velthor roared. "Target their lead ships." The station's weapons fired, bright lances of energy that streaked across space. They hit several pirate vessels, but for every ship they damaged, 2 more took its place. The pirates had come prepared this time. A communication signal forced its way through the station's systems. The main screen flickered and a face appeared. It was massive, with gray skin like stone and eyes that burned red. "Warlord Krath, leader of the Vorton Collective. Station Nexus 7. The warlord's voice rumbled. "You have 1 hour to surrender. Open your docking bays, give us your weapons cache and your research data. Do this and most of you will live. Refuse, and we will tear your station apart and take what we want from the wreckage." Velthor's scales darkened with rage. "We are Dracnith." "We do not surrender to pirates!" Krath smiled, showing teeth like broken rocks. "Then you will die like Dracnith." Brave and stupid, the screen went dark. "Shield status," Velthor demanded. 60% and dropping, Commander," one of his officers reported. "At this rate, they will breach the outer hull within 2 hours. Jiwoo had made her way to the command center, using her diplomatic clearance. She found Velthor directing his forces. His confidence from the first attack now replaced with something else. Not quite fear, but close to it. "Commander," she said, "we need to evacuate the civilians." "To where?" Velthor snapped. "The pirates have surrounded us. Any ship that launches will be destroyed. Then we need help. We need to call for reinforcements. The nearest military force is 3 days away. We do not have 3 days." Jiwoo looked around the command center, hoping to see anything that might help. That was when she noticed something strange. On one of the monitors showing the station's internal systems, someone was accessing the military database. Someone who should not have that level of clearance. She moved closer to the monitor. The access code showed it was coming from a terminal in Section C near the docking bays. She pulled up the user log. The terminal was registered to maintenance, and the last person to sign in from that area was Daewon. "What is he doing?" she whispered to herself. Across the station in the science wing, Tae-hyun was sealing the laboratory doors when he remembered something. It was a small thing, something he had dismissed years ago as a computer error. When Daewon had first arrived at the station, all new residents had to undergo a basic medical scan. Standard procedure. Tae-hyun had conducted Daewon's scan himself. The results had been normal mostly, except for some unusual markers in his genetic code. Modifications that looked like military enhancements. Advanced ones, the kind that soldiers received for combat operations. But Daewon's records showed no military service. He was listed as a civilian technician who had worked on various stations and ships throughout his life. So Tae-hyun had marked it as a database error and forgotten about it. Until now. Now, as explosions rocked the station and people screamed in the corridors, Tae-hyun pulled up that old scan on his personal data pad. He stared at the genetic markers. These were not errors. These were real, deliberate, expensive. Someone had modified Daewon's body for combat. Someone had turned him into something more than human. But who? And why was he pretending to be a simple maintenance worker? The station shuddered violently. The lights flickered. An announcement came through. "Hull breach in Section C. Emergency bulkheads are sealing. All personnel evacuate Section C immediately." Section C, the docking bays, where the pirates were boarding. Tae-hyun grabbed his datapad and ran toward the human quarters. He needed to find Jiwoo. He needed to tell someone what he had discovered. In Section C, smoke filled the corridors. The pirates had blown through the outer hull and were pouring into the station. They were big, most of them, heavily armed and armored. They moved in groups, killing any security officers who tried to stop them. Commander Velthor had sent his best soldiers to Section C, including Lieutenant Kryn and a squad of elite Dracnith warriors. They took defensive positions at a corridor junction, weapons ready. The pirates came around the corner in a rush. The two forces collided in a storm of weapons fire. The Dracnith fought well, but the pirates had numbers and heavy weapons. One by one, Velthor's soldiers fell. Kryn fought like a demon, his scales smoking from multiple hits, but there were too many. A pirate twice his size grabbed him and threw him against a wall. Kryn slumped down, unconscious or dead. The pirates moved forward, laughing, ready to push deeper into the station. Then they saw him. A human. Small compared to them, wearing a maintenance uniform. walking toward them through the smoke like he was just out for a stroll. "Look," one pirate laughed. "A human. This one is lost." 3 of them moved toward Day One, weapons raised but not yet firing. They were enjoying this, a chance to scare a weak human before the real fighting continued. "Run, little human," one said. "Maybe we let you live if you run fast enough." Day One stopped walking. He stood there in the smoke-filled corridor, his hands empty at his sides. He looked at the 3 pirates with those tired, quiet eyes. "You should leave," he said softly. "Leave the station." "Leave now." The pirates laughed harder. The closest one reached out to grab Day One's shoulder. What happened next took 3 seconds. The first pirate's weapon was in his hand. Then it was in Day One's hand. The pirate stared at his empty grip in confusion for half a second before Day One shot him in the chest with his own gun. The second pirate tried to raise his weapon. Day One moved like water, like shadow, like something that should not be possible. He was beside the pirate before the gun came up. His hand struck the pirate's throat, a precise hit that crushed the windpipe. The pirate dropped. The third pirate was faster, smarter. He got his gun up. He pulled the trigger. But Day One was already moving, the shot passing through empty air where he had been a moment before. Day One's hand caught the pirate's head, twisted, and there was a crack like breaking stone. 3 seconds. 3 dead pirates. The other pirates in the corridor stopped laughing. They stared at the small human standing among their dead companions, now holding a plasma rifle like he was born with it in his hands. "I told you to leave," Day One said quietly. Then he moved. In the command center, Velthor watched through the security cameras. His mouth hung open. His officers stood frozen, staring at the screens. The human was moving through Section C like death itself. He did not fight like a soldier. He fought like something else. Something ancient and terrible. He moved faster than the cameras could properly track. He used the station's corridors, the walls, the ceiling. He turned the pirates' numbers against them, funneling them into kill zones. He did not waste movement, did not waste ammunition. Every action had a purpose. Every shot found a target. "What is he?" Vexra whispered. Velthor could not answer. He had called humans weak, had mocked them for their small size and lack of physical strength. But strength, he was learning, came in many forms, and the quiet human he had insulted was showing a kind of strength that made Velthor's blood run cold. Jiwoo burst into the command center, Taehyun right behind her. "Commander!" "We need to talk about Day One." "I am watching him," Velthor said, his voice strange. Quiet. They looked at the screens, watched as Day One cleared another corridor of pirates, watched as he moved like a ghost through smoke and blood. "What is he?" Velthor asked again. Taehyun stepped forward, holding up his datapad. "I found something. From his medical scan 3 years ago. He has genetic modifications, military grade, very expensive, very illegal in most systems." He pulled up another file, so I searched deeper. I accessed old Earth military databases using my research clearances. And, Jiwoo pressed, I could not find much. Most of it is classified beyond my clearance. But I found one word that kept appearing in the files, a program name. Taehyun looked at the screen, where Day One was helping wounded security officers to safety. "The Harvester program. What is that?" Velthor demanded. "I do not know exactly, but from what little I could read, it was a black operations unit, created during Earth's war with the Korvath Empire 30 years ago. Elite soldiers, enhanced, trained for impossible missions." Taehyun's voice dropped. "The files I found said they were more than soldiers. They were weapons, and they were never supposed to exist." On the screen, Day One disappeared into the smoke again. More pirates fell. The invasion of Section C was stopping, not because of Velthor's soldiers, but because of one quiet human who had spent 3 years fixing pipes and cleaning air filters. Hana had been watching from the human quarters. Hana had locked herself in her ship's cabin with every security system active. The files she had found were spread across 3 screens in front of her. Some were official military records, partially redacted. Others were intelligence reports from various governments. A few were first-hand accounts from soldiers who had served during the Earth-Korvath War 30 years ago. All of them spoke about the Harvesters. She read through the reports with growing horror and understanding. The Harvester program had been Earth's answer to the Korvath Empire's overwhelming military superiority. The Korvath were a powerful species, technologically advanced and ruthlessly efficient. When they declared war on humanity's expanding territories, Earth's military forces were being destroyed. So Earth created something new, something terrible. They took their best soldiers and made them better. Genetic modifications to increase speed, strength, and healing. Cybernetic implants to enhance reflexes and combat processing. Memory enhancement to learn and adapt faster than any normal human. And then they trained them in every form of combat known to dozens of species. The harvesters were sent on missions that no one else could survive. They infiltrated Korvath command stations. They sabotaged enemy fleets from within. They eliminated high-value targets that conventional forces could not reach. They operated alone or in small teams, always behind enemy lines, always in the shadows, and they were devastatingly effective. The war turned. The Korvath, who had seemed unstoppable, suddenly found their commanders dead, their supply lines destroyed, their communications compromised. They began to fear the darkness because death came from the darkness. They began to fear the harvesters. When the war finally ended with a fragile peace treaty, the harvester program was officially disbanded. The soldiers were supposed to be deactivated, their enhancements removed or suppressed, their memories wiped. They were supposed to disappear into normal life. But one file Hana found suggested something different. A classified operation called Silent Watch. A handful of harvesters who volunteered to remain active, to live under false identities throughout the galaxy, watching for threats to humanity and its allies, sleeper agents who could activate when needed. She found a photo attached to one of the reports. It was old, the image quality poor. It showed a young soldier receiving medical treatment, his body covered in enhancement scars. The face was unmistakable despite being 30 years younger. Day 1. Or whatever his real name had been before he became Subject H-47. A knock on her cabin door made her jump. "Hana, it is Jiwoo, let me in. We need to talk." Hana opened the door. Jiwoo entered quickly, followed by Taehyun. Both looked shaken. "You found it too," Jiwoo said, seeing the files on Hana's screens. "The harvester program." "Yes. We need to confront him," Demand answers. "He saved the station," Taehyun pointed out. "He stopped the invasion. And he lied to all of us for 3 years," Jiwoo countered. "What else is he hiding? Why is he really here?" Before anyone could answer, the station's alarms blared again. But this time the automated voice said something different. "Alert. Incoming message from hostile fleet. Priority 1. All command staff report to the command center immediately." They rushed to the command center together. When they arrived, they found it crowded with officers and staff. Commander Velthor stood at the front, his expression unreadable. The main screen showed the pirate fleet still surrounding the station, but they were holding their position now, not attacking. "They want to negotiate," Velthor announced. "Warlord Krath himself is demanding to speak with station leadership." "It is a trap," someone said. "Perhaps. But we have little choice. Our shields are at 40%. We cannot survive another full assault." Velthor looked uncomfortable saying it. For a proud warrior species, admitting weakness was painful. The screen flickered to life. Warlord Krath's massive face appeared, but this time he looked different. "Angry, yes, but also wary. Almost nervous on Station Nexus 7, he began. "We have reconsidered our position. We will withdraw from this sector. The Vorten Collective will not trouble you again." Velthor's eyes widened. "You are surrendering?" "We are choosing not to engage further," Krath corrected, his pride clearly wounded. "This station is not worth the cost." "The cost of what?" "We barely damaged your fleet. You could overwhelm us easily." Krath's red eyes burned with something that looked like fear. "You have a harvester." Silence fell over the command center. Most of the aliens there did not know the term, but the few who did turned pale or made their species equivalent gesture of shock. "You will tell him," Krath continued, "that the Vortan Collective recognizes his territory. We will not return. This is our only warning. If he follows us, we will scatter to the edges of space, but we will not fight him." The warlord's face twisted with barely controlled terror. "We remember the stories. We remember what the harvesters did in the old war. We are not fools enough to face one willingly." The screen went dark. Within minutes, the pirate fleet began pulling away from the station. They retreated in disorder, some ships accelerating so hard their engines left trails of burning fuel. They ran. Velthor stared at the tactical display showing the pirates' retreat. He looked like someone had struck him in the head with a hammer, Around him, his officers whispered among themselves, their voices filled with confusion and dawning understanding. A harvester, Velthor said quietly. The human. Day-Wan is a harvester. What is a harvester? Vexra asked. No one answered her immediately. But slowly those who knew the stories began to explain. And as they explained, Velthor's expression changed from confusion to shame. He had called the human weak, had mocked him for 3 years, had treated him like he was beneath notice. And that human was one of the most dangerous beings in the known galaxy. They found Day-Wan in the medical bay, helping treat wounded security officers. He was bandaging a Drachnith soldier's arm with careful, practiced hands. He looked up when Velthor entered, followed by Jiwoo, Hana, Taehyun, and a dozen other station personnel. We need to talk, Velthor said. Day-Wan finished tying off the bandage, then stood slowly. He looked tired, more than tired. He looked old. I know, he said quietly. They moved to a private conference room. Day-Wan sat on one side of the table. Everyone else stood, as if sitting would make them too vulnerable. Even Velthor remained standing, though it clearly bothered his warrior pride to show such unease around someone he had spent years belittling. Is it true? Jiwoo asked. Are you a harvester? Day-Wan was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. I was. A long time ago. Subject H-47, Taehyun said, reading from his datapad. Inducted into the Harvester program at age 22. Served for 8 years during the Korvath War. Officially listed as decommissioned after the war ended. He looked up. But you were not decommissioned, were you? No, Day-Wan said. I volunteered for Silent Watch, a program to place former harvesters throughout the galaxy. We were supposed to watch for threats, live normal lives but remain ready if needed. You lied to us, Jiwoo said, her voice tight with anger and hurt. For 3 years you lied. I lived a role, Day-Wan corrected gently. There is a difference. Everything I did as a maintenance worker was real. I fixed things. I helped people. That was not a lie. But you were also watching, Hana said, monitoring the station, accessing secure systems, being ready for something like this. Day-Wan nodded. That was my mission. To be here if needed. And now? Velthor asked, his voice strange. Not angry. Almost respectful. What happens now? Now the pirates are gone. The threat is over. I go back to being maintenance just like that? Jiwoo demanded. We are supposed to pretend this never happened? Pretend you are just a normal human who happens to be able to kill dozens of armed pirates single-handedly. That would be preferable, yes. Taehyun stepped forward, his datapad showing medical scans. I need to examine you properly. The genetic modifications you received, they were experimental. Cutting edge for their time, but that was 30 years ago. The human body was not designed to sustain those kinds of enhancements long-term. Day-Wan looked at him for a moment, then nodded. I know you can scan me if you want, but I already know what you will find. What will I find? That I am dying, slowly. The modifications are breaking down. The cybernetic implants are failing. I have maybe 5 years left, maybe less. The room fell silent. Even Velthor looked shocked. That is why you volunteered for Silent Watch, Hana said, understanding dawning. You knew you were dying, so you chose to spend your remaining years being useful, being ready if needed. Someone has to stand watch, Day-Wan said simply. And I have already lived longer than I expected during the war. This is borrowed time. I might as well use it well. Jiwoo sat down suddenly, her anger deflating into sadness. That is not fair. What they did to you, it is not fair. War is not fair, but it is over now. And the modifications let me save this station, save all of you. That makes it worth it. Velthor moved closer to the table, his massive form looming over Day-Wan. But his posture was different now. Less aggressive, almost submissive. I mocked you, the commander said. Called you weak. Called your species weak. For 3 years I treated you with contempt. I know, Day-Wan said. It did not bother me. Why not? You could have revealed yourself at any time. Could have demanded respect. The next morning, Day-Wan reported to the medical bay as he had promised. Taehyun was waiting with a full suite of scanning equipment. The examination took 3 hours. When it was finished, Taehyun sat back and stared at his screens with a mixture of fascination and horror. This is remarkable, he said quietly. And terrible. Day-Wan sat on the examination table, pulling his shirt back on. Tell me what you found. Your cellular structure has been modified at the genetic level. Enhanced muscle density, reinforced bone structure, accelerated healing factors. Your neural pathways have been augmented with cybernetic interfaces that increase reaction time by a factor of 10. You have additional organs that do not exist in baseline humans, designed to filter toxins and process combat drugs. Tai-hyun looked up from his screens.
You are not human anymore.
Not entirely. You are something new. I am still human where it matters, Daewon said quietly. Perhaps, but the modifications are killing you. The enhanced cells are breaking down. Your body is rejecting the cybernetic implants. You have massive scarring in your neural tissue from decades of combat stress. You were right. 5 years at most. Probably less. Can you fix it? Taehyun shook his head. The technology used to create the harvesters was experimental. Most of the research was destroyed after the war. And even if I had the information, reversing 30 years of degradation would require resources we do not have on this station. He paused. I am sorry. Do not be. I knew what I was signing up for when I joined the program. We all did. Did you? Taehyun challenged. You were 22 years old. Did you really understand what you were giving up? Your health, your future, your chance at a normal life? Daewon was quiet for a moment. The Korvath were destroying human colonies. Millions of people were dying. Someone had to stop them. I chose to be that someone. I do not regret it. But the way he said it, the slight hesitation before the last sentence suggested that maybe sometimes he did regret it. At least a little. Ji-woo found Daewon later that day in his usual spot, fixing a malfunctioning power relay on level 34. She watched him work for a while, his hands moving through the wiring with practiced ease. He did not acknowledge her presence, but she knew he was aware she was there. Why did you come back to maintenance work after the attack? She asked finally. Everyone knows what you are now. You do not have to pretend anymore. I am not pretending, Daewon replied, not looking up from his work. This is what I do. This is what I have been doing for 3 years. Why would I stop? Because you saved the station. You are a hero. You could have a position of authority, respect, recognition. I do not want those things. What do you want? Daewon finished connecting a circuit and closed the panel. He stood up, finally looking at her. I want to be useful. I want the people around me to be safe. I want to know that when I die, I left things better than I found them. He picked up his toolkit. Sitting in an office would not accomplish any of that. Ji-woo studied his face. He looked even more tired than usual, the medical examination having clearly taken something out of him. Can I ask you something personal? You can ask. I might not answer. Do you have any family? Friends from before the war? Anyone who knows the real you? Daewon was quiet for a long time. The Harvester program required us to cut all ties. No family contact. No friends outside the program. We were weapons. Weapons do not have personal lives. He started walking toward the next maintenance point. There were other harvesters. We were close in a way, understood each other. But after the war, we were scattered. Told to never contact each other again, so no, I have no one from before. That is incredibly sad. It is practical. Attachments make you vulnerable, make you hesitate. A harvester cannot hesitate. But you are not a harvester anymore. You are Daewon. You fix things. You help people. You are allowed to have connections. He stopped walking and turned to look at her. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Something vulnerable and human and deeply lonely. Then it was gone, replaced by the familiar quiet reserve. Maybe, was all he said. Commander Velthor had been struggling since the battle. His entire worldview had been shaken. He had built his life on the belief that strength meant size, power, dominance, that warriors who showed their might openly were superior to those who did not. Then a small, quiet human had destroyed that belief in a matter of hours. He found himself watching the station's security footage from the battle over and over, watching Daewon move through the corridors, every motion efficient, every action purposeful, no wasted energy, no unnecessary displays of power, just pure, focused lethality when it was needed, and quiet calm when it was not. This, Velthor realized, was true strength, not the roaring, chest-beating dominance he had practiced his whole life, but the quiet confidence of someone who knew what they were capable of and did not need to prove it to anyone. He went to find Daewon. He found him in the maintenance bay organizing spare parts. Human, Velthor began, then stopped. Daewon, May I speak with you? Daewon looked up, surprised to hear the commander use his name. Of course. I have been thinking about what you said. About respect. About strength. Velthor shifted uncomfortably. Apologies did not come naturally to the Drachnith. I was wrong. About you. About humans. About what it means to be strong. You were not entirely wrong, Daewon said. Physical strength matters. Your people are warriors for good reason, but it is not the only kind of strength. You could have shown me that at any time, could have humiliated me in combat, proven your superiority. Why would I do that? What would it accomplish? You would have resented me, feared me, but you would not have learned anything. Daewon set down the part he was holding. You are learning now because you chose to, because you saw something that challenged your beliefs and you decided to think about it, instead of just rejecting it. That takes strength too. Velthor stood there processing this. Then slowly he lowered himself to one knee. It was a gesture of respect among the Drachnith, reserved for honored elders and great warriors. You have taught me something valuable, Velthor said. I would be honored if you would help me teach my officers. Help them understand what you have shown me. Stand up, Commander, Daewon said gently. I am no one's teacher. I am just someone who has lived long enough to learn a few things. If your officers want to talk to me, I will talk to them, but I will not accept displays like this. We are equals. Different but equals. Velthor stood, but the respect in his eyes remained. Very well. But know that you have changed how I see the galaxy, and that is a gift. After he left, Daewon allowed himself a small smile. Maybe Jiwoo was right. Maybe he was allowed to have connections. Hana came to see him that evening. She brought food from her ship, real Earth food that she had been saving for a special occasion. They ate together in the observation deck, looking out at the stars. I have been thinking, Hana said between bites, about what happens when you run out of time. When the modifications finally fail, there is nothing to think about. I will die. That is what happens to everyone eventually. But you have given so much, sacrificed so much. It does not seem right that you should just fade away, forgotten. I do not need to be remembered. I just need to have mattered. Hana set down her food and looked at him seriously. You matter, Daewon. Not because you are a harvester, not because you can fight like no one else, but because you are kind, because you help people, because you fix things, not just machines, but situations, relationships, problems. That is who you are, and that is who people will remember. Daewon felt something crack inside him, some wall he had built decades ago, when he had first joined the Harvester program and cut away everything soft about himself, the wall that had kept him alive through the war, through the lonely years after, through the endless watching and waiting. Thank you, he said quietly, and meant it. They sat in silence for a while, watching the stars. Then Hana asked, if you had it to do over again, would you still join the program? Still become a harvester? Daewon thought about it, really thought about it. I do not know, he admitted. The war needed to be won, people needed to be saved, and the harvesters accomplished that. But the cost was high, not just for me, but for all of us who joined. We gave up our humanity to protect humanity. There is an irony in that. But you got it back, Hana pointed out. Maybe not all of it, maybe not completely. But when I look at you now, I see a human, someone who cares, someone who feels, not a weapon. I hope you are right, Daewon said. I have been trying to be human again for 30 years. Some days I am not sure I remember how. You are doing fine, Hana assured him. She reached over and squeezed his hand. You are doing just fine. That night, Daewon dreamed. He dreamed of the war, of missions behind enemy lines, of the other harvesters he had served with, most of whom were dead now. He dreamed of the moment he had volunteered for Silent Watch, knowing it meant spending his remaining years alone, hidden, waiting. But he also dreamed of the last 3 years, of fixing things, of quiet conversations in maintenance corridors, of feeling for brief moments like a person again instead of a weapon. When he woke up, his face was wet. He could not remember the last time he had cried, probably before the war, before the modifications. 3 weeks passed. Station Nexus 7 returned to normal operations. Ships came and went. Trade resumed. The damaged sections were repaired. To anyone just arriving, it looked like nothing had ever happened. But those who had been there during the pirate attack knew better. They walked the corridors differently now, looked at the quiet maintenance worker with new eyes. Daewon had tried to return to his normal routine, but normal had changed. People thanked him when he fixed things. They asked if he needed help. They treated him with a respect that had nothing to do with fear. It made him uncomfortable at first. But slowly he started to accept it, started to let people in, just a little. Then Tae-hyun discovered something that changed everything. He was analyzing deep space signals as part of his regular research when he detected an unusual pattern, a transmission on a frequency that was not supposed to exist anymore. It was old Korvath military code from the war. He ran it through decryption software, not expecting much. What came back made his blood freeze. He found Jiwoo immediately. "We have a problem." "A big one." She followed him to his laboratory. He pulled up the decoded transmission on his screens. "It is from the Korvath Empire," he explained, "or what is left of it. After the war, we thought they were broken, scattered, but they have been rebuilding in secret in deep space beyond our borders. And they are coming back." Jiwoo read the transmission. It was a military order, sent to Korvath fleet commanders scattered across several sectors. The message was clear: prepare for invasion, target human colonies and their allies, strike fast and overwhelmingly. They had learned from their defeat 30 years ago. This time they would not underestimate humanity. "When?" Jiwoo asked. "Based on fleet positions in the transmission, they could reach the outer colonies within 2 months. But by the time we warn anyone, organize a defense, get military ships into position, it will be too late for the initial targets. Thousands will die before we can mount a proper response. We need to tell the Galactic Council, get them to mobilize. That will take weeks. Committees, debates, politics." Tae-hyun shook his head. "We do not have weeks." They looked at each other, the same thought occurring to both of them. "Daewon," Jiwoo said. They found him in the maintenance bay. When they showed him the transmission, his face went very still. He read it 3 times, his expression never changing. "This is a command-level transmission," he said finally. "It came from their central command station. They built a new one somewhere in the outer dark region." "How do you know?" Tae-hyun asked. "Because I destroyed their old one. During the war. It is how the Korvath were finally defeated. Without central coordination, their fleet fell apart." He looked at the transmission again. "If they have rebuilt and if that station becomes operational, they will be unstoppable. What can we do?" Jiwoo asked. Daewon was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood up and walked to a storage locker in the back of the maintenance bay. He pressed his hand against the lock, and it opened with a series of clicks that suggested it was more sophisticated than a simple storage container. Inside was military equipment, old but well-maintained. He pulled out a suit of light armor, weapons, and a datapad with coordinates on it. "There's a ship," he said quietly, "hidden on a moon 3 hours from here. It was part of Silent Watch protocol, emergency transport in case a harvester needed to mobilize quickly." He started checking the weapons with practiced movements. "I can reach the Korvath command station. I was trained for exactly this kind of mission. Infiltrate, sabotage, destroy." "Alone?" Hana said from the doorway. She had heard the conversation from the corridor. "You are planning to go alone?" "It is what harvesters do." "You are dying, Daewon. Tae-hyun said you have 5 years at most. A mission like this, in your condition, it will kill you faster. Then I die doing something that matters." He looked at all of them. "This is what I was made for. This is why I have been standing watch all these years. For a moment like this." Commander Velthor arrived, having been summoned by Jiwoo. He looked at the weapons, at Daewon's face, and understood immediately. "You are going to war," the commander said. "Yes. You will need support. I will assign you a squad of my best soldiers. No, this is a stealth mission. A small team or nothing." "Then I will come with you," Velthor said. "You saved my station, my warriors, my pride. I owe you a debt." Daewon studied the Drachnith commander. "You are not trained for this kind of operation. You would be a liability. Then train me. You have a 3-hour trip to that moon. Teach me what I need to know." Before Daewon could object, Hana stepped forward. "My ship can get us there faster than any station vessel. 2 hours if I push the engines. And I am going too. You will need an extraction pilot when the mission is done." "I will not be needing extraction," Daewon said quietly. "Maybe not, but I will be there anyway." Jiwoo looked at Taehyun, then back at Daewon. "I am a diplomat, not a soldier. But I can handle communications. Coordinate with the Galactic Council. Make sure that even if this mission fails, reinforcements are coming. And I can provide medical support," Taehyun added. Keep you alive long enough to complete the mission. Day-Wan looked at all of them. These people who a month ago had barely known him, who he had kept at a distance refusing to form attachments. Now they were volunteering to go with him on a suicide mission. Why? He asked simply. Because you would go alone if we did not, Jiwoo said. Because you have spent 30 years protecting people without asking for anything in return. Because now it is our turn to protect you. I am a weapon. Weapons do not need protection. You are not a weapon, Hana said firmly. You are our friend, and friends do not let friends die alone. Something broke inside Day-Wan at those words. The last wall, the final defense he had built around himself. He felt it crumble, and instead of feeling weak, he felt stronger. Because for the first time since the war, he was not alone. All right, he said. But we do this my way. If I give an order during the mission, you follow it without question. Lives depend on following the plan. They all nodded. 2 hours later, they were aboard Hana's cargo ship, the Bright Star, heading toward the hidden moon. Day-Wan had changed into the light armor and was checking weapons. Velthor watched him, memorizing every movement, every technique. You move differently when you are in combat mode, the commander observed. More focused, harder. I am switching mental states, Day-Wan explained. The modifications included neural programming. When I am in combat, certain parts of my brain activate. It makes me more efficient, less human. Does it hurt? Not physically. But emotionally, yes. I have to shut down feelings that might interfere. Compassion, fear, hesitation. I become what the program made me. A harvester of lives. He looked at Velthor. That is why I tried to stay in maintenance. To keep that part of me dormant. But now you must wake it up. Yes, one more time they reached the moon. The ship Day-Wan had mentioned was there, hidden in a crater. It was sleek and black, designed for stealth operations. The name painted on its hull in faded letters, Reaper's Edge. I flew this ship during the war, Day-Wan said as they boarded. With other harvesters. We completed 17 missions together. Only 3 of us survived to the end. The ship's systems came online at his touch, recognizing his biometric signature. It was old but functional. Within an hour, they were traveling through space at speeds that would have torn apart a commercial vessel. Day-Wan spent the journey teaching them what they needed to know. Velthor learned stealth techniques and the importance of patience over aggression. Taehyun studied the ship's medical systems and learned how to treat injuries from Korvath weapons. Jiwoo established a secure communication link with the Galactic Council, alerting them to the threat even though it would take days for any response. Hana flew the ship, following coordinates that Day-Wan provided. They were heading into the outer dark, a region of space that was poorly mapped and supposedly empty, but it was not empty. After 3 days of travel, they detected it. A massive structure hidden in the shadow of a dead star, the Korvath command station, even larger than the one Day-Wan had destroyed during the war. There are at least 50 ships around it, Hana reported. Warships, and the station itself is armed with enough weapons to destroy a planet. Then we need to make sure those weapons never get used, Day-Wan said. He pulled up schematics on the main screen. The station will have a central core. All communications, all command functions, everything runs through it. If we can reach the core and overload it, the entire station will destroy itself. How do we get inside? Velthor asked. We do not. I go inside alone. You stay with the ship ready to escape if I fail. No, everyone said at once. This is not a debate. If all of us go in and get caught, no one escapes to warn anyone. If I go alone, you can still get away. Still tell the galaxy what is happening here. You will never make it to the core alone, Taehyun argued. The station is too big, too well defended. Day-Wan looked at them, at these people who had become more than colleagues, more than allies. Friends, family, almost, for someone who had not had family in 30 years. I am a harvester, he said quietly. This is what I was built to do. Trust me. They argued for another hour, but eventually they had to accept it. This was his mission. His purpose,